After the end of every WRC season, we tend to remember the good stuff. The winners, the champions, you get the idea. Rarely do we pay attention to the bottom of the standings, where people who've had absolute shockers are. But believe me, oftentimes, the stories behind the drivers and teams down there are a lot more interesting than the ones from the top. This is 7 times a WRC manufacturer has had a season to forget. Let's start this list with Hyundai's 2003 WRC season. It was the last year of Hyundai's motorsport development era, motorsport development being the team that developed and ran the Hyundai Accent WRC. In the 2003 off-season, Hyundai Motorsport Development had a severe falling out regarding the team's spending, lack of results, and overall lack of transparency between motorsport development and the South Korean manufacturer. As a result, the team ran its 2003 season on a very small budget, meaning they couldn't develop the already very slow Hyundai Accent WRC. They retained the services of the 2002 lineup, with Belgian Freddy Loix and German Armin Schwarz on the wheel, but the results just didn't come. The team only had 3 points finishes throughout the year, with their most competitive outing being in the season opener in Monte Carlo, when Armin Schwarz finished 8th, albeit 7 minutes off eventual winner Sebastian Loeb. The team collapsed mere days before the San Remo rally and didn't rejoin the WRC until 11 years later. 1987 was a year of change for the WRC. The Group B monsters were gone, and they were instead replaced by the rather lackluster Group A counterparts. The dawn of the Group A era was just Lancia against themselves really, but despite that, Audi's season was so bad that it essentially made the German-based brand leave rallying after that season. Audi had left the WRC after the events of Portugal in 1986, but rejoined for the 1987 season with the Audi 200 Quattro. The car had nowhere near the same prestige as the S1 Quattro. In fact, it's mostly known for being a boat, with the car being 120 kilograms overweight compared to the Lancia. The team scored a 1-2 finish in Safari, an event that Lancia skipped, that being the team's last ever win. The only notable result Audi had in 1987, apart from that, was Mikola's 3rd place in Acropolis. After the end of the season, Audi withdrew their factory support, acknowledging that the Audi 200 or 80 wouldn't be able to match the Lancia Delta anytime soon. 2006 was the beginning of the end for Subaru's WRC journey. After a solid 2005 campaign, only for Peter Solberg since Chris Atkinson and Stefan Sarazan were also part of that team, Subaru debuted a new car for the 2006 season with high expectations. Unfortunately, the car was a complete downgrade on almost every area compared to its predecessor. The car was understeery, a mess to drive, and also unreliable. The only surface the car showed speed in was on rough gravel, and that was only before it inevitably broke down. To put it into perspective just how bad this season was for Subaru, the team would have likely lost out to the privateer OMV Peugeot team had they have competed in every round. OMV Peugeot's lead driver, Manfred Stoll, finished ahead of Solberg by 14 points, scoring the same amount of podiums. To go from a championship challenger to being beaten by Manfred Stoll in just 1 year is astounding, and it's mostly because of the 2006 Impreza. This was the team's first winless season since 1992, with Subaru only scoring 4 podiums, all courtesy of Solberg, with the team being helped by Loeb missing the final few rounds. After a rather subpar and chaotic behind-the-scenes 2017 season, Citroen hoped that 2018 would be a far better year. However, it would be more of the same, but worse. The French manufacturer was still the only one out of the 4 teams to use 2 cars full-time. Everyone else was running 3, and when they did, most of the time it was Sir Khalid Al-Qasimi, who brought Abu Dhabi sponsorship to the team. Citroen then sacked their lead driver Chris Meek after the Northern Irishman went on a poor run of form, crashing out of 4 out of the first 6 rallies. After that, the season was pretty much over for Citroen. The team now had arguably the least prestigious lineup out of them all, and the C3 was also slowly losing touch with the Yaris, the i20 and the Fiesta, especially on gravel. Sebastian Loeb gave Citroen a popular win after an inspired tyre choice on the morning of the last day of Rally Catalunya, but that was as good as the season got for the French team. He scored 1 win and 4 podiums and finished last in the standings, some 87 points behind M Sport in 3rd. Their season was so bad that none of their drivers featured in the top 10 of the driver standings come season's end. Citroen would leave the sport after a similarly challenging 2019 campaign. "1993 was a dismal year for Lancia. In fact, it was the last year any of the proper teams would use a Lancia Integrale. Lancia withdrew manufacturer support at the end of the 1991 season, and Jolly Club effectively became the factory team from 1992 onwards. They won the Constructors' Crown in 1992, and Juha Kankkonen and Didi Oriol finished the season in second and third in the driver standings. For 1993, Kankkonen and Oriol departed for Toyota, with 1990 and 1992 champion Carlos Sainz heading the other way. Sainz was recruited by Jolly Club after a sponsorship conflict between Repsol and Castrol forced the Spaniard to depart from Toyota. Jolly Club promised Sainz that the Delta would still be developed throughout 1993, despite Lancia having withdrawn their support. However, the car only saw minor updates throughout the year, and the Delta, that was already slowly falling behind its competitors, would end the season as the slowest, or at least as the car with the least potential out of all of the Group A ones. A lowlight of the team's season came in Sanremo, in their home rally, where Sainz finished second but was disqualified for using illegal fuel. That would be all she wrote for Lancia in the WRC, as for 1994 there would not be any team running the Deltas, with Jolly Club switching to Ford. At the end of 1994, Toyota introduced a new car to succeed the highly successful Celica Turbo ST185, which had helped the team secure 3 consecutive drivers' titles with Sainz, Kankkonen and Oriol from 1992 to 1994, as well as 2 constructors' titles in 1993 and 1994. The new car, the Celica Turbo ST205, was debuted by Thomas Janssen in the 1000 Lakes Rally and was also used by Juha Kankkonen in Sanremo and Wales, as well as in some other non-WRC events like the WRC Championship round in Rally Australia. Eventual 1994 championship winner Didi Oriol interestingly chose to not use the new car, not wanting to gamble on his title's chances. For 1995, all drivers had the new car, but with mixed results. The new car wasn't as competitive as the previous one, and was also plagued by mechanical gremlins. Oriol won in Corsica, and Kankkonen was there or thereabouts in the title fight with 4 podium finishes, but the Finn would ultimately be ruled out from the title fight, after retiring from the lead in Catalonia. Speaking of Catalonia, that's when the shit hit the fan for Toyota. Didi Oriol, who had finished third, was excluded after his car was found to have had an illegal turbo restrictor. The way Toyota had made that restrictor was so it would pass all FIA tests, meeting all regulations etc, but when it was put in the car, the restrictor would allow more air to flow through, and thus it would let the engine produce more power. How much power? Well, according to estimates, about 50 brake horsepower, and all that from a 5mm movement of the restrictor when the car accelerated. When the engine was turned off, then the restrictor would move back to its so-called legal place, and that was it. Max Mosley, who was the FIA president at the time, called Toyota's restrictor plate the most sophisticated device he'd ever seen in 30 years of motorsports. Toyota were promptly disqualified from the 1995 standings and were also given a 1-year ban for 1996. They'd also skip 1997 to develop the Corolla WRC for the 1998 season. After losing Sebastian Ogier in 2018 and Elfyn Evans in 2019, M-Sport went into survival mode for 2020, waiting for the new Rally 1 regulations to debut for 2021. However, the pandemic delayed the introduction of those regulations by 1 year, meaning M-Sport were in an even worse position for 2021. The team would only run 2 cars, with Gus Greensmith being the only full-time entry, with the second car being shared between Teemu Suninen and Adrian Fourmont. At the time, this was widely looked at as one of the worst lineups M-Sport had ever had. Gus was seen as nothing more than a pay driver. Fourmont sure was talented, but not as someone worthy of a WRC yet. And even worse, it looked like the team had reduced their best driver to a part-time campaign. Suninen was let go mid-season, with his last rally with the team being in Rally Estonia. Fourmont and Greensmith competed in all of the events after that, with the team's best result being 4th and 5th in Safari. The car was underdeveloped and lacked pace compared to the i20 and the Yaris. The 2 M-Sport drivers were effectively no man's land, usually left to battle it out with the unofficial WRC 1.5 class of Katsuta, Lube and themselves. 2021 also saw M-Sport struggle with reliability, as a new engine update gave the drivers some problems. All in all, this was perhaps M-Sport's most forgettable season in the WRC, with the team finishing third, a massive 263 points behind Hyundai in second.